is the, welcome to the Monday, July 7th meeting of the Rules Committee in a new location here. And symbolically, we're here because they're televised, is that it?
Well, Madam Chair, members of the committee, good evening. The committee has been here once before. The direction I received from the committee was this is not a location that you wanted to come to every time, but from time to time it was all right when there were issues that might require more discussion by the council. So with the budget item on the agenda this evening, Madam Chair, I thought it was appropriate to enter in this configuration. So
Right,
I
so
appreciate the council's willingness to do that.
All right. So it's just occasional for everyone. All right, we do have a quorum, and the first item is citizen comment. We have one name here, Rodney Green. Clerk Green, would you like to go ahead and speak?
No, I'd like to speak once you get to items 4 and 5, and speak at that time.
All right, okay, we'll do that. All right, so the first item then is approval of minutes of the regular meeting of June 2nd, 2014.
Move approval. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Okay. Next is item 4. Approval, continued discussion on employees of elected officials. Brent, did you want to speak to us about this? We have the memo from you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I think this is Grand Forks Corporation Council. With respect to the memorandum that's in the packet, this is the follow-up that was requested of staff by this committee with respect to prior hiring practices. I believe, in summary, the memo indicates that the 3 prior clerks that we spoke to made their hiring decisions. More recently, the City of Evanston Human Resources Division was utilized with respect to hiring and assisting the clerk in staffing matters. Prior to that time, the clerks were making hiring decisions essentially on their own. So what we did is we spoke to these former clerks and set forth some more of the context that this committee required. And given the context and some of the prior discussion, what we suggested was the following amendment to the code with respect to hiring by the clerk. It states, city clerk, with the advice of the city manager, may appoint 1 or more deputy clerks. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Alderman Rainey?
I'm just thinking that some people's memories might be a little faulty. I'm just suggesting that. But I think if we do accept that amendment, that it should include a reference to the budgeted amount. That, deputy clerk and others, or whatever the phraseology is, leaves it pretty open. I think there should be some parameters regarding the budget that we passed.
Well,
Well,
with respect to that, if the sum is going to be agreed upon by the council, that sum will have to be revised given different budgeting considerations. So that will require the nature of a continuing, ongoing code amendment, possibly, prospectively.
Any other comments? Alderman Goldberg?
Madam Chair, I think it might be helpful to understand how our current city clerk, what his hiring practices and procedures are, and they may closely align with what the city's own hiring practices are, and it just is another data point on what the procedures are.
Clerk Green, would you like to speak now?
Do I need to go to mine?
I believe you do.
Clerk Rodney Green, City Clerk of Evanston. As to the procedures of hiring in the clerk's office, I did go through HR. I prepared an exam for each person who was applying for the position. We went over those responses from those 5 that we interviewed. And out of that 5, we picked, at that time, Elaine Otwell. Every last one of the persons who came through that testing in the HR. I had on that committee myself, Ricky Voss, and I think it must have been Sarah out of Bagley, out of Human Resources Office. From that, we took questions, we looked at the test, and we scored on that. So the people had taken the test, had gone through HR, and at that point, we made a choice, made a decision. That decision finally rested with me to decide which one of the 5 would come into the office. Each one who's in the office now has gone through that exam, because at the same time that we gave the exam to Elaine Otwell, Letitia Blackman was on that interview at the same time. And that's how she moved in, and that's how things were done with the hiring. And we went through the same process in doing the firing. Checked with HR. I informed the city manager at the time. Went through to see what I was doing to make sure that everything was right and in order. All the I's were dotted and all the T's were crossed. At that time, we then followed through, gave a letter of termination, and then let Ms. Otwell go. Any questions?
Alderman Fisk and then Alderman Rainey.
Rodney, where do you advertise? I'm not quite sure what advertising we do for positions.
The position was advertised through HR, looking for a deputy clerk. It was, they put it through, I put the description that needed for the position. I think I may still have the announcement, but I'm not sure, but HR should have a copy of that announcement.
And Alderman Fisk, members of the committee, we have an online application system, so if people are interested, they can look there, and all of our jobs are posted there. We do also supplement that with advertising. That varies widely, position to position. The kind of print advertising, there are some websites that we use, so I think we usually work with the department to decide what makes sense for each individual position, but they're all centrally advertised on our website.
Well, do the applicants know if they're going through the system, do they know that they're at-will employees?
Yes, the job announcement is very clear
Okay.
in that regard.
Alderman Rainey.
Well, I mean, it sounds to me like you use the human resources template. It's just that you're the one who makes the decision, right? I mean, everything else is the same. Yeah, yeah. I don't
They're
have
not.
a problem.
But they're not.
They're not.
But the employees, but.
They're
What do you mean they're not
city
city
employees.
employees?
Let me explain that too. They are city employees, but they're working under an elected official. I do the evaluation of those employees. I give recommendations for the employees. They are under my direction, even though they may be a city employee. So I do the final, I've done all the evaluations on all of the employees under the city clerk's office. Any other questions?
Well, I'm just confused. I mean, are they legally city employees or are they city clerk employees?
They are employees of the city clerk.
Who do they sue if they're
They sue the city clerk.
PO'd? I mean, we don't, the city of Evanston doesn't get sued, just the city clerk's office gets sued?
That's a legal question I can't answer.
Let the city manager, hold on everyone, hold on.
Every employee of the corporation is employed of the city of Evanston. Employees really fall under 3 frameworks for their employment. One are those employees that are under the responsibility of the city manager. That's the lion's share of our staff. The library now has a separate hiring practice with library board and library director hire, and then then there are employees of elected officials. And I think that is where we started this discussion with the Rules Committee, was the status of those employees. Did they enjoy the same rights and privileges that employees that are hired under the authority of the city manager do? Employees hired under the authority of the library director and the library board, we have already made clear, follow the same responsibilities, so they are disciplined and hired and fired in the same manner as those employees by the city manager, just the final determination is made by the library director. So there is some ambiguity in those positions regarding that are hired by the city clerk, and then also would be the mayor and city council assistant. So the discussion here, I think, was meant to try to clarify that. I think this is now the third meeting. We've discussed this, Mr. Farrar and I, in reviewing what was discussed at the last meeting, came up with the language here, because it seemed like there was still not a consensus about making any additional changes. I think it's really up to your comfort level with any elected city clerk. I think the incumbent city clerk, Mr. Green's made it very clear that he is following a practice that, as you see in the memo this evening, has been a practice that was conducted by other city clerks. But the key point is that there's nothing under the Evanston Code that is requiring him to conduct himself in the manner he's described. I think that was the concern that started this discussion, not so much the conduct of Mr. Green, but the conduct of any city clerk based on the language that's in the Evanston City Code.
Well, not only that, I mean, any elected official, I just think that it has just a tinge to it that I'm not comfortable with. I don't, maybe other people are, but I'm not. I just would like to see the employees have the rights of everybody else employed by the city or city employees, and it should be the same. That was the point. It had nothing to do with Mr. Green and what he, I mean, he was very clear in terms of what he did. It raised an issue that I was not aware of. And I think most of the people around the table weren't aware of it until we discussed it. And once it was brought to everyone's attention, I still feel the same way.
In that same vein, if you realize all the states in the United States are acknowledged at-will employees. Evanston is the only one, Illinois is the only one who does not have any stipulations on their at-will employees, but everybody recognizes at-will employees, and even the ones who come into the clerk's office, the letter states that you are an at-will employee when you get the letter of confirmation that you have been accepted into the position. So if you didn't know that, that's a bit of information you should know.
Alderman Burris?
I agree with you, Alderman Thompson. I have issues with having employees reporting directly to elected officials, and even the terms of this of may appoint. I don't even like that terminology. So it seems what we've been skirting around is coming to a consensus on, do all employees then report to up through the city manager? Or are we still going to allow 3 employees, is that right now? 3 employees to report to elected officials? And that's really the question at hand that we're moving around and not really getting to. That's the decision that we need to vote on. Maybe I'm making it too simple, but that's how I see what we're talking about, and happy to, is that right?
I would like all employees to have the same rights. I realize, Rodney, you're completely correct, but in what is and isn't legal. But in my view, what we should be doing is different from what the minimum the law requires. So, particularly in terms of terminating an employee, I would like them to have the same rights that all the rest of the city employees have.
Alderman Rainey?
We have a salary structure, right, of some kind that certain people fit, certain positions fit in certain slots. Is the city clerk's office governed by that, or can you determine salary?
No, the salary is set for the deputy clerks. That's why even when the part-time deputy clerk came in, she had to have the same salary as a full-time deputy clerk, but at a part-time salary.
But who sets that?
It was set before I came on board.
By whom?
By whom? That's what I'm trying
It
to
was
get.
set by the council, whoever decided that what the salary would be for the clerk's office.
Okay, so there are currently 2 positions in the clerk's office.
Yes.
And those were determined by virtue of passing the budget that included them,
Yes.
right?
As I gathered, yes.
Budget.
And so the only way that we change it if you decide that you change the budget, and that's the only way you go through it that way.
Do you approve all employee hirings?
I do.
You do.
And with the exception of the library department, and as Mr. Green has described, in the last 5 years, we have done this collegially, where he has brought to me the issues. All the paperwork still comes through my office, since the human resource staff is still under my responsibility. So, but we have not come to the point where I've said hire this person through a process that we have done over the clerk's objectives. We've tried to make it as collegial as possible.
Well, you try not to do that with any.
Of course, sure, of course. So in many respects, yes. I mean, Mr. Green's hiring is very similar to what other departments do from a process perspective.
Alderman Wilson?
Maybe I'm alone in this, but I'm disagreeing with the idea that the employees of the clerk, or I don't want anybody at the city working directly for me, but that they should not be reporting to the elected official, and they should be reporting to the city manager. The elected official doesn't report to the city manager. The city clerk doesn't report to the city manager. The mayor doesn't report to the city manager. So why would we institute a policy that allows employees to report to someone other than the person that they're supposed to be there to serve? It's completely counterintuitive to the purpose. The elected officials are accountable to the people who are voting. That's who they're accountable to. And if we change the way that it's being done, and we have employees that answer to someone other than the elected official, you provide really two opportunities to undermine the elected officials, what they're doing. If, for some reason, the city manager would never do that, but a city manager chose to undertake a course to undermine any given elected official, they could simply do that by utilizing the employees of that elected official, and that would be inappropriate. Furthermore, let's say the mayor's trusted employee decided to endorse and support the opponent in the next election. And say, so-and-so is a much better mayor, this is a terrible mayor. The mayor has to continue to allow that person to make the meetings, schedule everything. That doesn't make any sense. So I think those are the kinds of reasons why it's structured the way it's structured, and I'm very uncomfortable with changing it.
Alderman Fisk?
I think part of the problem is not that anyone has done anything wrong, or we even would think about it, but the appearance is that the employees, these at-will employees, are close to the line of being political appointees. And I think a lot of people in the city, if they were aware of that, would feel very uncomfortable with that. And that raises a larger question of, I'm not suggesting that's going on here at all, but would raise a larger question of, to whom does that employee's first allegiance lie? To the person who appointed them, or to the city of Evanston? So that's the problem that I see. I can't imagine that ever happening, but I think that's the question.
And I'm sure that the language says appoint, it doesn't say hire.
Right.
Yeah,
No,
so you're
so
right.
maybe
we change the language.
Well, theoretically, they could be appointed and not paid as well.
And not what?
And not paid. I mean,
Well, if you
take
change
that.
the terminology to hire, then that would.
So these school board members take that job and they don't get paid.
Mr.
They would
Bonacos.
start working on me.
In my experience, codes are written the way Evanston's code is written for a purpose, because it provides some latitude that you would trust your city manager, whoever he or she may be, to operate the city on many levels and many responsibilities. This kind of gets folded in. You hope and entrust your elected city clerk and your mayor and the council to also behave within that certain way. My experience is if you put a lot of policies and procedures behind it, it usually trips you up more than you ever really intended it to trip you up. And sometimes you just have to rely on the behavior and the practice of the incumbents to make sure everything goes all right. And I think as Mr. Green has demonstrated, his behavior as the incumbent has been perfectly appropriate. But ultimately, as I think Alderman Wilson points out, the people work for him. He is the elected official elected by the residents of Evanston. So he should have that right, as you should all feel comfortable, the mayor should feel comfortable with whoever provides support. Sometimes I think you just have to rely that the system is going to work. I think through this discussion you've made it very clear to me, as a city manager, you made it very clear to your elected city clerk that you would like the process that we have done to continue. And as Mr. Green and I leave, transition, whatever we do over the course of years, that tradition is then succeeded by the next city clerk and the next city manager. I think past history has been this largely worked. So perhaps maybe it's just a matter of, having this discussion, having the discussion be in the record, and moving forward and leaving it as is, with, I think, the understanding to me as the city manager and to Mr. Green as the clerk, that you'd like the hiring practice to be as close to a regular practice as possible in the future for both the city clerk positions as well as for the mayor and city council assistant.
I have, it was a tie. So, okay, Alderman Holmes.
I'm going to say one more time, I think I said this at the last meeting. I had no problem if people were taken from a pool. So, new person coming in, if they don't like the person that's working for them, or they think that they're not loyal to them or whatever, they could pull from a pool. I just think, speaking from the employee side, I just would rather see that and know that they were getting then the same rights as everyone else, rather than just, I think it's the not so much the hiring of as it is the termination of that concerns me in terms of the rights of the employee. So I'm I just think that we have to think about the employee, and that was from the perspective that I first spoke about. So I'm not going to say it again. That's it. That's all I have to say about it.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson and then Alderman Grover.
And I was just going to say that I think the little additional language to the code is appropriate and makes sense, because it makes clear to future generations that there's an intention not to have the city clerk rely on the city manager for the hiring, but there should be some working together in the process. So how that gets worked out.
You can't legislate that.
Right. Well, I mean, that's why I think just the little addition there on the advice of makes some sense.
Alderman Grover.
Would these at-will positions otherwise be eligible for ASFME membership? I'm assuming that.
Absolutely not.
No?
I don't see that.
No at-will position.
I mean, if they were not at will,
Yes, because
then
I think there would
be.
certainly be a dialogue, Alderman Grover. These are meet and confer matters, and I think the bargaining unit would have to demonstrate why they felt it would be something covered in the union, which is a whole other set of
Right.
issues.
Right.
Mayor Tisdall and then Alderman.
Well, given Alderman Wilson's scenario, thank you all for
Worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario. I still feel that as an elected official and as the mayor, I could certainly say that I couldn't work with whomever, but that they should have, when I say that, the same rights in the process of deciding whether or not they should be terminated. They should have the same rights as everyone else. And so I agree with Alderman Holmes and would like to see that change made. Because otherwise I could be mad because they weren't campaigning for me.
Alderman Grover and then Clerk Humphrey.
I'm just wondering to what extent does our ethics code apply anyway to at-will employees that would prohibit political participation?
Everybody.
Well, everybody's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes it does.
Alderman Rainey.
It really all boils down to, for example, when Rodney leaves or when Liz leaves, well, you don't claim to hire and fire your assistant.
I haven't hired or fired her, no.
We will not let you fire her. so.
Good.
But anyway.
Do not
so-
be alarmed.
Yeah.
You're all fine.
When this is where it boils down to. This employee is not covered by the same protections that other employees are, excluding any union protections. Because when the city clerk leaves office, whether he gets defeated, decides not to run, or retires, the next person in that office, given this legislation, can say to the person, "I'm sorry, you're gone. We're not compatible," and for whatever reason, it doesn't matter. And that's where the issue that Alderman Fisk brings up is it becomes extremely political. You're hiring from a pool, well, you know, your buddies can be in that pool, and you can make sure they're in that pool. I'm not saying they are, but there can be favoritism. So these employees are not subject to the same protections in terms of the human resource department and employee, whatever we have, than other employees. They're just not. And, you know, I don't know if everybody knows at will means that, but that's what it means. You're fired at there's no cause for firing. There's no cause for firing.
Alderman Tenden.
Did you say that Illinois is not an at-will state?
Illinois is an at-will.
It will
state.
is.
All of the states in the United States
Right,
are
okay,
at-will.
okay.
Illinois just doesn't have
Right.
little clauses in it that some states have.
I mean, I would agree with Alderman Wilson. I'm pretty comfortable with the way things are. I don't see this as being broken, so I don't know that we need to amend it in any way. It's worked for many years. It's a unique situation, so it's not clear to really compare it to anything else. But, you know, I think it seems to be working, so I don't know that we need to really fix it.
Clerk Green, would you like to say something?
Just want to say another thing. You keep saying that at-will employees don't have rights. They do have
Well,
rights.
they do have rights,
And
but not all of them.
then they go through the same process that a regular employee who is not at will. There's not too many non-at-will employees in this city or any place else. So if you're looking at changing the laws for at-will, you're going to have to do it for everybody in the city, which is going to cost the city money. That again takes away the authority of the clerk, the mayor, or any other elected official to do what they need to do with their employees. I have never gone beyond and said you fired just because I don't like your hairstyle or I don't like the way you dress. We go through the same process of making sure discrimination is done, that they're terminated because lack of responsibility or decorum or customer relationships, that is protected. They go through the same thing. We give them, if they go false on something, we give them a course they go take to improve themselves. They try it, they don't improve, then we give them another thing to do. It go down the line that until it's not accomplished, then the final step is, and it said, any other action can lead up to termination. And so it's all in the policy. It still falls on the same policy that any other employee in the city has.
But I agree with all that. I know that's the case. All I'm saying is, when you step out of that office, the next person can say, goodbye, whoever you are. I'm bringing in my own people. I'm going to go to the pool and hire somebody else. That's all. So that protection, while he leaves, I'm sure that many people who are under him, you know, the city attorney, all that, they're probably not going to. He's in that role too, right?
Yeah, I think the circumstances.
It's not political.
Sure,
It's not
exempt.
political,
Sure,
right.
exempt.
Yeah, you're an elected. That's where the problem is for me. Just that's the only place. However, we have what, 3 employees in the entire city that we're talking about?
Yes.
No.
4?
Are at will or can I
At
get a
will.
distinction? I mean, at will or at will for an elected
We
official?
started off talking about the elected officials' employees.
Right,
That's all.
It then went down and it's changed from the first time we spoke about it, national, down to just the clerk's employees. That's discrimination.
No, it's not.
No,
it's
but
not.
I believe the mayor has expressed concern about this as well.
I understand that, but if you look at the minutes, and I've looked at the tapes, it has gone to the point that it's gone from talking about the elected employees, but it's boiled down to what's happening in the clerk's office.
I think we
And the things that
had,
came up was that the clerk, I am not comfortable with the procedures that's now going on in the clerk's office. That's public, that's been said by the council, well, not the whole council, but these things been said, and it still points at the clerk's office. I don't care who the clerk may be. You cannot, or you should not, put one department over another department and go beyond the laws and rules of the council to stipulate that specific employees of of elected officials need to be changed. That's all I have to say.
And Clerk Green, as the mayor has said, she also shares concern about the employees that work for the mayor. And so I think that we're looking at all of this group, any employee who works for an elected official.
Right.
So Alderman Fisk, where are we on this, folks?
I'm not going to say where we are.
All right, that was, okay, go ahead, Alderman Fisk.
But I did just want to say one thing about a comment Rodney made, and that is, I don't think we're questioning your authority. When you said questioning the authority of the elected official, I don't think we're doing that. I think what we're trying to do, I understand my colleagues, is that we're trying to make this fair for employees who may not have the same rights or access to them as other employees. So it's not, again, it's not about you, it's not about the mayor, but it's about the employees, at least from my point of view.
Alderman Burrs.
We need some sort of motion to vote on, going up or down, correct? On where we are but we do not have, oh, sorry.
I move that we adopt the additional language that's set forth in the description that adds the words with the advice of the city manager. So it clarifies that the city clerk is responsible for the hiring with consultation with the city manager.
Okay, so you're including the word hiring, not appointment?
No, just as it's written.
Can you change that one word?
Yeah, I've changed that
Friendly
word.
amendments of the deputy clerk to hire.
See, this is the whole problem. folks.
This is the whole problem. It's about appointment. It's about
That's
appointment.
been
It's a political
Status. It's a
appointment.
status
That's
of
been the point of the whole conversation.
Yep.
Well, hold on.
You know, it's like I said before, the city clerk could have people there who are not paid
Oh, but
employees.
we're not
there.
talking about
We're
that.
not talking about
That
But
also,
it just provides for them.
but it doesn't address
the
What we're
employee issue.
terminating.
Okay, let's change the word. So my motion is withdrawn, and I change my motion to adopt the suggested additional language that says the city clerk with the advice of the, and strike the word appoint and change that to hire.
So read the whole thing, if you would,
So it
please.
would now read under deputies, under 1-7-4, the city clerk, comma, with the advice of the city manager, comma, may hire one or more deputy clerks who shall be empowered to perform all the duties of the city clerk during the temporary absence of said city clerk.
And that's been moved and seconded.
But this is not helping at all with the situation, particularly with
It's a little.
the mayor.
Well, it addresses
It doesn't help, it doesn't change it at all, because I'm
Right,
I'm
yeah.
comfortable with it, so that's my motion now.
Okay,
My
no, all
motion is
right, I
that-
just wanted to make sure that we're being
And
very clear.
This is the first part that makes very clear what Clerk Green has already been doing. And so this means that in the future clerks will consult with the city manager and hire someone.
But my point is that it shouldn't just be about the city clerk, it should be also the mayor, because I think we are, if we're talking about people that are reporting to elected officials, this shouldn't just be about the city clerk's office, it should also be about the mayor's office.
Yes.
If we're bundling it all together. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that you want that, but we need to put this all under one bundle, and separating it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
And I'm suggesting my motion is to make, that is the only change, and that we not change anything else.
Right.
So that's my motion, and I understand all of the concerns, but I don't see that as something that I'm interested in changing.
Yeah,
So
no,
my
I-
motion is that we only do this and not do
Right, and
anything
I'm
else.
just
You can't move not
pointing
to
it out.
change anything
Okay.
else.
I'm just pointing it out.
Nothing else in the world can change it.
Okay, can we vote on the motion?
Could I point something
Yes,
out?
Alderman.
This only has to do with deputies.
That's right.
And it's under the
we don't
provision
have
of
any other
clerks.
And there are
deputies.
no other deputies except in the city clerk's office.
Okay.
So that's Mr. Green's point.
Can I,
What does this really do?
Nothing.
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 It's useless.
Yeah.
Well, I think what it does do is it reflects that there's an expectation that there be communication with the city in consultation with the hiring. But it clarifies that the city clerk does the hiring. I think the way it was written before is it said the city manager can do this.
Should do that.
So it should be the city clerk's responsibility.
So this actually brings this brings this in line with reality.
Right,
What
as
has
it's
been
been
going
done.
on.
So this makes it clear that the city clerk does the hiring, but there isn't, and it also clarifies that there is an expectation that it be in consultation with the city, so that there will be some protocol followed.
Can I add one more
Yes,
thing?
go ahead.
I know you also asked the city council to, the attorney to look into other municipalities and how the city clerks handle their deputies. I saw his list and I also found a list of my own. Village of Harwood Heights, the village clerk appoints the deputy clerk and has the authority to terminate. Northbrook, the clerk appoints the deputy clerk and can also terminate the deputy clerk. Palatine, the elected clerk appoints the deputy clerk and is involved through the village manager as a day-to-day manager, but the clerk also can terminate. New Trier, the elected clerk appoints the deputy clerk and has the authority to terminate if necessary.
Wait, New Trier is not a city.
Township.
I'm going township.
Yeah, but
Okay,
township,
we'll knock out
township governments.
Okay, we'll knock out New Trier. Niles, the elected clerk appoints the deputy clerk and has the authority to terminate. So that's 4 out of the ones I looked up that said that the clerk has the authority to hire and to fire.
Thank you. I think that's useful, but I think that there might be still a different feeling here. Yes,
I
Alderman
have a question about your interpretation of that. It would seem to me that there are people in the clerk's office who have been hired. One of them then gets appointed a deputy clerk. In other words, it seems interesting that you would hire a deputy clerk. I think you hire somebody and then appoint them. I think that's where the appointment and hiring come in. You know, I think you can take away, you can undeputize a city clerk without firing the person. That's what I think.
Yes, you can demote a deputy clerk to another,
Clerk.
most deputy clerks that are hired under a probationary period. If they feel up to that point, at least with the ones I've talked to, and the clerks I've talked to in those municipalities, their clerks go through a promotion period, and if that person fits the gender of the office, then that person, it's just like any other employee. You got a probationary period for every employee in the city. And they either make it or they don't make it. The same thing is with the deputy clerks in the clerk's office. I didn't put a probationary period on them. I just put them in the position because they were there at the time. They did go through the process, and that's how I felt that should go through at that point. That's the way I've been doing it since I've been here since 2008, and that's where I'll continue doing it if I'm even going past 2017.
Alderman Burst, did you have your hand?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I was just looking to my head.
There is a motion, and it's been seconded, and I think we should vote on the motion. All those in favor, please
Can I
say
get a motion
aye.
again?
Aye.
To adopt the change that was suggested, designating the city clerk as the one who does the hiring in consultation with the city manager. And we're changing the word appoint to hire. So,
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
No.
All right, let's do it by hand. All those in favor, raise your hand. Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4.
It's 5.
It's a tie. How about I don't care?
With that hand.
I've lost interest. I've lost
is
interest.
that an abstention?
We're beating it to death. No, I
Yes,
can't.
we are beating it to death.
Madam
But it
Chair,
is a tie.
Yes.
Perhaps the clerk and the corporation council and I can continue to have these discussions and at an appropriate point come back to this committee with additional discussion.
Thank you. I think that's a good idea.
Oh, good. We can talk about it sometime.
We can all be like Quakers and decide to take this
Let it-
under
the
advisement.
decision come
And let
to
the
us.
decision come to us until we reach consensus. Okay, for the first time in our lives in the city council.
You clearly have been on vacation.
I visited a couple of Quaker colleges. Okay, so that, we're done
thank
with this.
you.
Thank you, Clerk Green. All right. Next.
Madam Chair, in the interest of time, perhaps we could take the audiovisual equipment another evening and go to the budget item, which is the next item on the agenda.
Could we just quickly discuss that though, because it's on here and it's been made public.
Just quickly, or not words that we did.
I mean, we won't talk, but you'll talk.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, then the next item was regarding the use of audiovisual equipment during citizen participation at City Council Committee regular meetings. It has been our past practice to not allow for use of PowerPoint or slides or videos in public comment. That has recently changed on a case-by-case basis. More and more people then, as we've allowed it a few times, more people expect it and it's something to be done. I've worked with the committee chairs and kind of created a policy informally that the committee chair has to approve it in advance. I don't know that that's a workable policy moving forward, so I would ask the committee to decide, are you comfortable with having the committee chair decide? Are you comfortable just having anyone, as long as they do it within the prescribed time frame, do whatever they want? Or is there a third or fourth option?
Alderman Wilson, then the mayor.
There's no way people will have their comments go within 3 minutes if they're using equipment as well. So I would strongly suggest that at council meetings we not provide equipment.
She said.
Okay, Alderman Rainey.
Yeah, I would agree to allow it at committee meetings, but absolutely not at council meetings. Our council meetings are unbelievably drawn out.
Right, I agree.
Committee meetings with prior consent.
That's good.
You have to just show
But I
up.
mean, when a developer does a presentation, citizens who are in opposition,
Sure.
they always want to have.
Well, I actually would not, I'd say, I'm sorry, I'm usurping, I think it should be uniform at the committees, that if someone can do it at the committee, I mean, because certainly the professionals who come before us always come in with something, and I think if we did it at the chairs, at the consent of that particular chair, that's not fair. We should make it uniform.
No, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it shouldn't be considered.
Well, I've let people, when the developer has a presentation they're going to make, then people have to band together on time, and the developer gets one presentation and the
We need to do
opponents
it at
gets
the
one.
committee level.
Yeah, I was gonna say, they shouldn't get any more time than if the
Committee
developer
level
takes
is-
15 minutes, then they shouldn't have no more than 15 minutes as
Yeah.
well. I think that maybe has to be at the discretion of the chair, but it has to be fair.
But
Right.
if they give a presentation of the committee, that's where the heavy duty discussion usually takes place.
Right.
And if aldermen are affected by that developer or issue and they're not on the committee, they really have an obligation to come to
Come to
that
the
committee
committee,
right.
and
Absolutely.
hear whatever's
That's
going
right.
on.
That's true.
Alderman Glover, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was going to say, committee, same time limit, same opportunity, no pre-clearance by a committee chair, just because that would tend to maybe, you'd be judging content instead of just by time. It's the time limit that makes it fair and even.
Yeah.
So we're agreed. I know.
But I would say, I'm sorry, Alderman Fisk, that if someone wants to do that, they can't arrive.
Right,
expecting
right,
their-
right.
yeah,
With advance notice.
Right.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
my fourth.
Right.
Advance notice, assuming that there's a little bit more fuss involved in our AV equipment than there is with a microphone.
Yeah.
So, Madam Chair, members of the committee, what I would like to do then is, with your direction, come back with language that would amend the rule number 6, and then we'll put that on for full council consideration. And if there's wordsmithing, just do it full council.
So now we got rid of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Final item tonight.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee, it is time to start thinking about the 2015 budget. So I've come to you today with a couple of items to talk about. I'm concerned as we move forward that while things are better, we still need to be mindful of additional resources that are needed for city services. I've put down a list of particular issues that I'm concerned about, to be able to find additional resources for the coming year. In order to do that, I've asked all the departments to begin with developing packages of reductions that would equal 3% of each of their budgets, with the exception of police and fire. That will generate about $1.4 million. So that money would be available to the city council for additional funding. Again, as we look, come to you at your meeting in August with the mid-year budget report, we're still feeling very confident that the budget is doing well, the revenues are strong, but I think the needs of the community continue to increase, and rather than immediately looking to raise the revenue, I think it needs to be balanced by reducing expenses as well. So that I have already announced to the staff last week that we're doing, so we'll move forward with that. I do think it's important that the police department and fire departments look at their budgets and make sure that they are aligned with the council's goals. And so I've asked Chief Eddington and Chief Kleiber to consider this issue and to present ideas to address as part of the 2015 budget. As we look at the budget for 2015, I am concerned that we continue to be focused on aligning the budget with the city council's goals. I think there are, as I said, opportunities to reallocate existing resources, and I also think that this reallocation will help with the concern that I have of a sense of lack of urgency among some parts of our staff to be focused on that. And I think that as we look at making adjustments to the budget, that issue of urgency has to be looked at, and I will look at it as I prepare the budget moving forward for your review for 2015. Finally, I think it would be appropriate for the City Council to once again discuss future issues, and rather than being focused on goals or strategic planning, I really think this idea of looking at your vision for Evanston is an appropriate way for the council to spend some time discussing not a specific vision statement as this council has done, other councils have done, but really what is your vision for Evanston? And so we can use that discussion to help us with the budget as well. Jean Bonander, who worked with the council last year, and I think in talking with you, you all felt comfortable with her. I would propose bringing her back to Evanston probably for 2 meetings, one soon in July or August, and then perhaps one in September, October, as part of our finalization of the budget process. I've encouraged or suggested a number of dates that this could happen: July 22nd, July 23rd, July 29th, or a few dates the week of August 4th. To do that, we would then have a budget process that would look very similar to last year's budget process. I'm not recommending the capital tour. If you recall, on a Saturday, the council went and looked at capital projects. I don't think there's been enough changes in our capital program to warrant such a tour for next year, but that we would have a community meeting on the budget in September. We would present the budget to the council on October 10th, have a budget workshop on Monday, October 20th, a public hearing for the budget on Saturday, October 25th, and then discussions on Monday, November 10th, and Monday, November 17th, with budget adoptions the week of Thanksgiving on Monday, November 24th. So, Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm asking you to have at least a general discussion about the process and the concerns that I have, as well as to look at your calendars this evening so that we can select a date in late July or early August. That would be great.
Alderman Rainey.
When you say present the budget to the council on October 10th, you mean deliver it to us? You don't mean any
That's
interaction, because that's Friday, right?
That's
Okay.
correct.
I can tell you right now, I will not be present on the Wednesday, September 10th.
Okay. And that's been a staff-driven meeting in the last few years.
Yeah.
Community. It's still a community meeting that we all like to go to.
So do you want us to
Push the bills on to
figure the dates out right this minute? or do you
Well,
want us to
if we could have figured the July date or the August date out, that would be very helpful.
The only date I can make it is the 29th.
Well, that narrows
The only date that I'm in town with was
Is when?
the 29th of July.
July 29th.
Because
But
I
if
think we
if
have
there's a better date for everybody else,
a
that's
CD hearing on the 23rd. I have that note on my calendar.
I
Does
can't
anybody
make
else?
the 23rd.
So how many people can make the 29th?
Do you, yeah, I can.
Well, everyone can make the 29th,
Okay,
but perhaps
let's
we
do
just
that.
go with the 29th.
Yeah, let's
Peter, Alderman Holmes, can you make
Yes,
it
I
29th?
can do 29, I can't do the 23rd.
So we would shoot for
Okay.
Tuesday,
Just-
July 29th.
Dar, I can't make the 29th.
You can?
Wow, that's great.
Sadly.
Wow, that's the
You'll
fastest
be
we've ever
there.
done that. Okay,
That was 7 o'clock?
So Tuesday, July 29th at 7 o'clock, unless you're willing to start earlier.
I always want to
Start at 6.
Can
Seven
you make
7
I'd
o'clock.
rather 7.
7.
Pardon?
6:30.
6:30? All right, we'll do Tuesday, July 29th
The
at
hour.
6:30. Thank you. And does the framework for the budget process make sense to the council?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good, thank you. And we would have it in this room.
Yes. Alderman Groveland?
If I may, just in the future, when it comes to scheduling our August meeting, while we're on the issue of dates, if we could perhaps meet instead of at the end of August, schedule our council meeting, schedule a council meeting for the second meeting in August rather than the first normal council meeting in August, just because, like this year, we're all back at school anyway we're all back in town because school is already in session. And so it would make more sense for our August meeting to happen closer to the end of the month when school is beginning rather than the beginning of the month when vacations are more likely to happen. For 2015.
Our August meeting is
August 11th, right, which
Usually that's tough.
yeah.
it's harder to do just because that's when a lot of,
Is it possible, I know this is last minute to say this at this point, to move that meeting,
Absolutely.
Which one?
the August 11th meeting to August 20th? The
25th.
regular city council meeting, our August meeting.
Right.
Moving it from August 11th to August 25th because school is back in session on August 25th.
Sounds like a plan.
Sure. My only concern is the bills. That it would be very difficult to go a full month. So we would be going from July 28th.
To August 25th, or the 26th, actually.
I'd prefer to leave it to the 11th, because as you go into the end of August, then people are thinking about Labor Day at school.
We certainly could have an abbreviated agenda on August 11th.
No. And then another meeting on the,
If you'd like. I mean, we could have a non-committee meeting on August 11th. Just have a council meeting that would have bills and whatever other items of urgency and be in and out in an hour.
Well, you know,
If we have a quorum.
I can't either, though. I agree with Alderman Grover. It's difficult to plan it on this short a timeline. But
I was
perhaps
just
for-
suggesting for 2015 that we reconsider swapping our off time.
And then it can be planned a little bit more, but the bills are still going to be problematic.
I mean, we can work with it. I mean, if the council, I mean, you have time. I don't want you to think you can't do it now. If you'd like to have your only meeting on August 25th, which
I don't
is
want.
Monday, we'll figure it out and make it work.
I'm fine with the way it is this year,
I'm
although
fine
it
with
sounds
the way it
like
is
a
this year.
couple of us will not be there.
I'll be
Actually, I
You'll
will
be
be
there?
there. I was
Okay.
wrong. It'll be the following one that I won't.
Yeah, all right. But for
okay, so we
2015,
can
as
all
I
be there
said.
on the.
So August 11th, you'll all be there.
Yeah.
Right, and I think we should have a regular meeting, get all this stuff out of the way, otherwise we get doubled up the next
Right,
time.
you're right.
And we're gonna have a missed meeting anyway, so let's just do a full.
It's
When the
2015.
committee looks at meetings scheduled for 2015,
Yes.
we can have that discussion.
Can we keep that in mind?
We'll use school people.
The whole point. Dag nabbit
Yes,
schools?
that's right. Thank you, Dolores.
Oh, yeah, when is that?
Dolores, do you want to take this one?
Yes, ma'am. The subcommittee for evaluations met on the 2nd. We have everything compiled from the city council, and we now need a date. And we need about, I think we usually take 4 hours, is that right? About 4 hours between now, and we'd like to get this done before we go on break. And because it was requested that we do like a 360 assessment, and we've done that. We have developed a questionnaire for the staff, which will go to 11 directors of the city, and it will be done in the same way in which we did it with the council. DAR will send it out to them, they will send it back to DAR. The committee will meet again, we'll compile it, and then we want to have all of that when we meet on the date. So we'd like to have a date soon. And I hear people saying they're not going to be here, so I'm kind of worried in terms of when that could be. We need at least a week turnaround time, so we can't do it this week. But after that, we'll be ready.
Well,
And we'll ask you to trust us on the evaluation sheet. We use some of the same questions that's on the sheet that you already had, so. we
Actually,
just-
they're all of the questions are the ones from.
They're all there, yeah, but we didn't use them all.
No.
We didn't use them all. We selected some, so.
So Dara can send out an email and see what date, if any, we can all meet.
Well, that's what we, since people have their calendars now, that's what I was hoping we could do that now, we'll send out, because we need to get the evaluations to the
It's a
staff
budget.
as well.
Does the committee have a recommendation for a date? Because I would want the committee
Not
to
really that day.
We want to do it before we go on break.
I can go get
Time about 4 hours.
When is that?
Yeah.
You're right.
What is after the
Do we have a council meeting on the
So before the
21st?
11th, we want to do it before the 11th.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, you have a meeting scheduled on the 21st. I'm looking at what's on the agenda. There are a couple of presentations. There's a water sales update, which could certainly be delayed. We have not had an opportunity to hear from downtown Evanston, and we were planning on having their executive director come with a presentation on their current operations, but that could also be moved. We had planned another discussion on CIP facility issues. We had planned a discussion on bike plan update and final report on that, an update on the swim survey that we did, and an update on our summer youth program. So none of
It's a
those
full
are,
agenda.
they're all important,
Yeah.
but we could swish them around if we need to.
That's an interim meeting, that's not a.
That's your birthday, that's the third,
It's
that's
the
the
third,
third
it's the
Monday.
third before, and you're not going to be there.
Okay.
Down won't be here?
Right.
Okay.
So how
Forget
about
that.
how about?
Drinks?
We have a 28th.
On Monday?
The 28th is a regular meeting, so we'll have,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
can't do that.
So how about the,
Monday, you all back?
how about the 17th?
After the meeting?
Thursday.
July.
17, I can't do,
I
that's
was
my board
going for
meeting.
before.
How about the 30th?
She wants both.
It's a Wednesday.
Three nights.
1, 2, 3, 4.
3 nights is
Big
that.
birthdays on
How
the
about the 16th?
21st. My stepbrother.
I'm sorry, we're looking at
That's next week.
I'm sorry.
We're having a town hall meeting.
That's right.
That, yes, John.
What date is
All right,
that?
how about you do the 21st, and I'll just,
No, John, you have to, we all have to be there.
No, we all need to, we have to.
No,
be
it's
here.
important.
all
Well,
right.
there was one that I could make that you, just
About a
that wasn't,
Saturday.
3
Yeah,
nights
can
in a
we-
row. What's the 3 nights?
Saturday
What
morning?
about a Saturday morning? Donnie, you available a Saturday morning?
Weekends are pretty tough.
Yeah,
so-
weekends are very good. How about
Sunday
Thursday,
night?
the 24th?
I think this is a mistake to do it like this.
I have a board
What do
meeting.
you mean?
We should do it on paper.
Well, but then we go back and forth.
Yeah,
At least
we're
we have
on-
everybody around the table that's involved
So
right
when-
now.
Well, if we
What's
did,
wrong with the 30th?
the 30th is, that will means we'll have met 3 nights in a row. But
What are we doing Tuesday?
What are we doing the
Tuesday?
28th?
3 nights
How about
in
the
a row.
23rd?
Gene
Yeah.
Bolander.
Oh, okay.
I'm out of town.
28th is a regular
Sorry.
council meeting.
31st, that gives us a day of break.
Colleen's out of town.
On the 23rd, I'm sorry,
31st?
31st,
I'm here.
You really can't make the 24th?
Wait, who's,
I won't be in town.
let's talk about the 31st. Is everyone,
First.
is anyone not available on the 31st?
But I would change my plans. I mean, it's
Wally.
it's the meeting of the Big Ten city managers. so I
No,
can
you have to
send-
go to that.
That's
I
important.
can send another staff member to that.
All right. Okay,
How about the 25th of August?
Good Lord.
that's.
No, because, no.
Are you still out of town?
Yeah,
Okay.
no.
that's the first.
They want it
First day of school.
before.
What about
I want
August
to be
1st?
corporate.
I'm sorry, August, you said?
August
No,
20th.
no, I'm sorry.
But
What about August 1st, it's a
I
Friday
was
night?
looking at, so
Oh.
25th.
We can bring drinks.
Oh,
Let's go back to the 30th of July. Was there
Saturday
any, are you
morning,
out of town for that
Friday
one?
night.
The 30th of July?
But I could,
jeez.
No.
That's-
No,
what's
we
this?
don't.
Oh, no,
Big Ten.
That's the Big Ten
right,
conference.
it's the, yeah.
Okay.
it's the-
Is August 25th too far away?
Well, we kind of felt it was.
What about the
Doug, could you be
29th?
on
It doesn't have to
we
be,
had
I mean-
a conference
That's
call?
our budget thing.
Oh,
Maybe we just make this work in honor of Wally's fifth year with us. This is
Just don't
the,
know,
that's
it'll
why
be
we
in
wanted to do the
Atlanta.
360.
what about a Saturday?
Saturday's in
It's
summer.
at- Very.
I remember
On
morning.
Saturdays.
The second?
The second-
August 25th?
August 25th?
August 25th, anybody? Going once?
It might be the night of my movie in the park.
What
I
day
don't
of the
have a-
week is
It's
Monday.
a Monday. It's the first day of school.
Oh,
Oh,
Is that when
It's a
we're
Monday
back?
night.
all
Yes.
my kids.
this will be
August,
my-
August
this will be my
21st,
last-
25th,
it's
August
gonna be my
25th,
last
going
First day
once?
of school. All right, is everyone, can we all do it on
Yeah.
August 25th?
I think I can.
Can you do it?
Alderman Holmes, do you think that that's too late?
Yeah, I do.
What's the date?
I'm sorry, I do.
She
I
wants it
just-
before
I
it's
just- I would like
it's
to
almost
do
2
it.
months from now.
I think that's
I
not fair
tend to
while
agree.
We're
And-
late already, and I'm sorry, we just have to do it. We have to do it.
August 7 is
Can
what?
Can we do it, is there a Saturday, early Saturday morning?
No, wait, why can't we do August 7?
August 7th?
Hold on, let me be.
I don't know if I'll be here.
It's a
I
Thursday.
think for
So
that-
those are the 2 weeks I'm going to be out of town.
What, are you, the first 2 weeks in August?
No, I'm out of town the week of the 21st of July and the week of August 4th.
Okay,
Oh,
so
those
that
weeks.
does work.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am too.
Okay, and Peter's not here that week as well. So,
So you can't do it the week before the 11th, because everybody's.
So I do it July 30th.
Mark, your time, your
Oh,
meeting's
wow.
on the
well,
24th?
you're in Chicago.
Yes.
in New
And
Brunswick,
what's on
New
the
Jersey.
23rd?
Oh, thrills.
Rutgers.
The home of
What's-
Rutgers University.
What's wrong with
The
that?
16th
good
isn't
Lord.
I
enough
used to
time.
live down the street.
This
Huh?
next week isn't enough time.
Do we want to try a Saturday? Go
Is that
back
right?
to Saturday?
Yeah, if we did, we did,
Saturday,
we could
8
do
or
the
9 o'clock
16th.
start?
How about the 16th?
No, no,
The
the
mayor
mayor
has
has
town hall.
town hall meeting.
And we've got an
What's the
end.
time?
Saturday, 8
Yeah.
or 9 o'clock?
What's happening July 17th?
My ward meeting,
Oh, excuse me, all right,
the
okay,
third Thursday.
right.
Alderman Holmes, I think that, I take no offense if the council clearly wants to do this properly, and if August 25th is the day,
Why would we pick the only day that you're not going to do it?
no, August 25th, everyone. can be
August
here.
20th.
But can you?
Yes,
But
absolutely.
it's
August
not out of
But
town,
it's
it's
too
2
late.
months from now, that's
It's
the
2
thing.
months
I
from
know.
now.
All
August
right,
Yeah,
25th.
how about
with
the-
Can
the
anyone
vacation
do
time?
Saturday morning, July
No,
19th?
we're all back in school and, oh,
I'm
yeah.
not going on vacation.
Hold on, can I-
That's the-
I haven't.
Okay.
All right, but that's that week.
I picked those 2 weeks because those are off council.
Right, no,
meetings
that's
for me,
fine.
so
No,
that's why I
no.
picked those 2 weeks.
Understood,
Which makes it,
yeah.
How about September?
You're way out there.
Is anybody here on the 12th
Of what month?
of August?
August 12th.
It's the day after our last meeting.
Right.
Could we do it, could we do it on
Good
the
one,
12th?
Good one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do it the 12th.
August 12th, unless it was,
Starlight Concert, I'm just not sure.
what is it?
Which one?
DJ Rob,
Yeah,
Where
where
What park,
at?
what park?
well, no one please.
Folks, beat it up.
August 12th, Twigs.
Oh, no.
That's okay,
August 25th.
that's okay. I mean, I can have somebody cover the, Carolyn will cover the Twilight concert.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I appreciate your concern. I think, unless you feel there's going to be a change in the office of city manager with this evaluation, that the August 20, and I'd like to
Sounds
know
like
that
that's
sooner
just
than
I'm
later.
pushing that, huh?
But
I
if
just
but if
want-
you don't believe there is, then
All right,
Especially
you know
while
what,
you're gonna be
here's-
at that
here's what-
conference.
Part of it is, though, that because we've set aside that week as our break,
Right, yeah.
that we're really wanting to take a break
Right,
from
right,
meetings. And
Right.
so I think the 12th sounds like a
I
really
think the 12th.
good
sounds-
day, even if
Time.
that encroaches on the front end of our break.
6 or 6:30?
Well, August
6.
12th, can you make it, Don?
Yes.
Tuesday, August 12th?
Is there anybody who can't?
Can we start
make
at
it?
6?
Could we start
Yes.
earlier in the day?
Yes.
No, Don does
6, that's okay.
6, okay.
6 to 9?
Well, you make up with.
There's no movie in the park that night, right?
that's correct. I believe the only
August
thing
night-
that night
August
is
night
that
cover.
Twigs Park concert.
That's okay, I can handle that.
Yeah,
That's-
where?
That's all right.
The
Oh, we're gonna be
Aldermanic
here In
Library.
the Aldermanic Library. Okay.
Uh-huh,
So that's August
August 12th,
thank you.
At 6 p.m.
6
At 6 p.m.
There's a movie the next night at Bent Park.
So 6 to 10.
Skip that anyway.
about,
Is it
Okay.
age
All right,
appropriate?
does everyone have it? It's August 12th, 6 p.m. And I would like to suggest that as part of our next year's calendar, we establish a date for the
absolutely.
city manager evaluation.
And
And then,
stick to it.
and then
And-
back
well,
up our
and then-
dates for our committee meeting
our
if
committee
we're on the
meetings, right.
committee.
And you will receive within the next week or so, you'll receive your copies of
The
the
packet.
evaluations. The packet.
Yeah.
And I have, and Zara, I have a way of adding the director's evaluation
Mhm.
scores
We're gonna put
to
that in.
that in the,
Okay, we got it.
all right.
Right,
Oh, you added it.
okay. All right, with
So-
that, I believe
I
we're,
thought it couldn't be done.
although I
Is
think,
that okay now?
No, that's fine. I asked a question.
All right, just
No,
let us know.
really.
Just for the three of
Adjourn and,
Okay,
Just let us know.
We do need,
How we can help.
go to executive session.
All right, quick executive session.
all right,
I think-
we need to
So move
adjourn
to
the
adjourn.
committee.
Oh, for council.
Is
Are
there
we
a
going
second?
to the library?
I think,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Call
so-
the meeting.
So please, you guys, is there a second for?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.